We're looking now at an interesting collection of mid-19th century juveniles in period cloth bindings. This one has an 1869 inscription from Amherst, New Hampshire. Look at that. That's a great woodcut illustration of a man selling toy dolls in public. And what makes these types of books interesting are the woodcut illustrations within, as well as, oh, look at that, there's a doll, the bindings, and also often at the rear of this type of a juvenile, there is to be found a publisher's catalog, like here, listing various types of books available from the publisher of this book. 16-page catalog at the rear of that one. This one here, next, has a wonderful pictorial gilt spine. The boards are stamped in blind with 4 children going around a Mayflower pole, or I think it's a Mayflower pole, it's called. They run around it with ribbon. 1856, middle of the 19th century. And this one has small little woodcut. Oh, there's a mining illustration right there. Ah, yes, a child playing with 2 snakes. There's an interior scene. And what's interesting here we see is a publisher's catalog printed onto the paste down in the free end paper, as well as other advertisements to the front of the book. Here again, this is interesting. This is a front cover stamped in gilt and in blind, stamped in gilt on the spine. We've got an 1852 Charleston inscription. This is a wood engraving frontis, 1851, Pebbles by the Seashore. And we see some scattered age staining. There's the father in his top hat and long coat, taking his daughters, presumably, to the sea. Yes, of course, you visit the sea dressed like that. Next book, nice gilt stamped spine, ornate floral lettered gilt front cover, stamped in blind as well. And again, we often, almost always, find early inscriptions, owner's inscriptions in books like this, because the owner would have highly valued this book. It would have been a prized possession. Books were expensive. This is a lithographed frontis and half title, 1853. Interesting use of lithography here, tinted lithography, signed in the plate, and full page illustrations. Oh, so many images of people reading books at this date. They're quite prevalent in juveniles. Oh, there we are. Winter sports and sledding. It's interesting, right? Domestic agricultural pursuits like feeding animals in a farmyard. This is an embossed in blind, or blind embossed, with an old book plate. Here we've got a color lithographed frontis, 1871. Unusual publisher here, Tibbals, not a major or well-known publisher of juveniles. This is a beautifully preserved example of this binding, stamped in blind, ornately with beautiful bright gilt spine. Again, we see an early owner's inscription here. And we're looking again, 1853. There's New York City. And this book here is interesting because it's got various small wood engravings. In theory, it does. Unless I'm going right by them, which is possible. Yes. Sons of Temperance. All right. Okay. Let's see what else we can find as we flip through. Of course, the daughter, her love for her father or mother there. Three Graces, Muses by a fountain, and that would appear to be the extent of the illustrations in that beautiful book. Here is another one stamped in blind with a playing card spade. Again, we see wood engraving frontis. This is 73, so a little bit later than the others, 20 years later. Just the frontis in this book here. Nice spine. And here we have, again, this is a different version of the same book there. And this one is a different title, 1856, by Rand and Avery. And here we see, again, wood engravings, small ones, fishing throughout. And of course the interior scene by the fireplace. And next we've got a hillside library, which is embossed, and the spine is now faded on this one. Interesting early inscription from Rockville, looks like Connecticut. The first glass of wine, there we are. And this one, Henry Hoyt, and that's 1866, so right after the Civil War. It's interesting here because these full-page wood engravings have tissue guards in them. Perhaps a bit of a affectation, given that most likely there would be very little offsetting from a wood engraving, more likely from a steel engraving or a color image. And the final item is this small little teacher's present with a very interesting and nice blind stamped binding. And again, we see an early, probably contemporary 1840s or 50s, 47 inscription. Fine little wood engraved frontis. Second edition, Fitchburg, Massachusetts. Of course, moral stories. Look at that, it's interesting. The printer in Fitchburg. These kind of local production books are inherently scarce due to the local origin and the nature of the distribution channels at that time. And so this collection of 10 mid-19th century American juveniles is available on my website, briandemambro.com.